Okay, Dr. Ray, it is 9 o'clock in Saudi Arabia, 12 o'clock where we're at, and 11 o'clock where Dr. Salam is at. And I think we're ready to get going. We have a lot of great people. I recognize a lot of names and a lot of faces. We're streaming this on Facebook, and we'll also be recording it to upload it to our YouTube account. So, Dr. Ray, it's all yours.
Great, and I've been scrolling through the names also, see several names I recognize and great memories of our working together. I'm Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director of Array Global Education Services, and we're thrilled that you are with us today to discuss the issues beyond COVID-19, believe it or not. The reason we established this workshop, and as many of you are aware, we had a workshop all Saturdays in August, and if you did not have the opportunity to attend any of those, they're on our Facebook page and YouTube. And we specifically dealt with 4 areas that were affected by the shutdown, COVID-19, emergency plans, and so forth. One was on what do we need to do about the curriculum. One was on what we do to make sure the system is in place. One was on assessment, how we make assessment more meaningful during the time when we don't have those students in school in front of us all the time. And the other was on the whole issue of distance education, internet use, and so forth. And so if you have not had an opportunity to look at those, each of them is about 1 hour long. And if you haven't had a chance and you would like to look through those, they are available to you. Today, what we would like to do is to help us think bigger than the COVID-19. Yes, we're living with COVID-19. We're living with schools shutting down. We're living with schools having to operate differently. But we felt that we needed to have an emphasis on what are those things that we shouldn't forget about quality in light of what we do. And today we're pleased that all 3 of the board members of Array Global are with us. Most of you have met Dr. Jacob Francom, who's the Associate Director, and we're thrilled to have Dr. Salam Noor, who is the 3rd founding board member of Array Global. We are the 3 who are ultimately responsible for everything, the services that we offer, the policies that we do, the standards that we write, the schools that we accredit, the visits that we do, and everything involved with Array Global. If you like it, you can thank us 3. If you don't like it, you can blame us 3. So we accept responsibility, and we hope that so far you have seen us to be very helpful and very much in line with what you would help you in this time. So I'm just going to ask Dr. Jake and Dr. Salam just to bring you a few greetings, and then we'll get started.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. I'm Dr. Jake Francom, and I know many of you. Glad to see you virtually. I wish we could be there with you in your schools and in your countries and interacting with you. We do miss you all, but we're here to support you in any way that we possibly can. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a superintendent of schools in the state of Montana. That's in the northwestern part of the United States. And I've been able to travel and work with international schools for over the past decade, and always find it so rich and rewarding, not just in seeing the schools and helping schools improve, but just building the relationships with the quality educators that we can come in contact regularly. And we're excited to be able to provide these workshops so schools can continue on as normal as possible during this difficult time. And here at Array Global, we're happy to help you in any way that we possibly can. Just a few things as I add on to my introduction. Please, if you do have any questions or comments, please add it to the chat. If there are specific questions that you want us to answer that we can help you out with our school, please email me. And many of you have my email because I sent you the link to this workshop tonight. But if you have any other questions, you can also email info@arrayglobal.org. At the end of this workshop, I'm going to post in the chat and on our Facebook page a link to the survey so we can take get your thoughts and also take attendance so we can send out the certificates. And those certificates will be mailed out to everyone within the next week. And so please, as you fill out that workshop survey, please make sure that your name is how you want it on the certificate and that your email address is correct. We want to make sure that we're getting it to you in a timely manner. And if there are any questions, if you haven't received your certificate by next Saturday, please just email me and we'll try and remedy what the problem was. So thank you again, Dr. Ray. I'm excited to be part of this workshop.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ray and Dr. Jake. Good evening, everyone. My name is Salam Noor, and it is really a pleasure to be with you today, and especially with my colleagues who care deeply and are extremely passionate about education and international education and the work that you do specifically, and are continuing to bring you a quality service and information that will help you do your work in the best fashion possible. A little bit about myself. Currently, I'm a consultant. I have the privilege of working with schools and districts and colleges and universities and public entities in general relative to education, educational improvement, and in a variety of different roles and in all facets that pertain to education. I'm very familiar with international schools and have had the privilege of traveling with both Dr. Ray and Dr. Jake to visit schools in your countries, perhaps. And those are always rewarding experiences that I learn a lot from and appreciate the relationships that we develop over time, because that's really what this work is about. Prior to my current role, I was the State Superintendent of Public Instruction in the state of Oregon, responsible for over 1,250 schools and 550,000 students. And I bring that perspective to the work that we do at Array Global Educational Services. So we serve you through that lens of someone that's worked at the state level, someone that's worked from in a Ministry of Education and looks at your work through a Ministry of Education, school leaders, district leaders, and someone that's worked in all of us actually that have worked in a lot of different sectors of education. So I'm thrilled to be on this call, on this Zoom, and I look forward to our conversation and learning together today.
Great. Thank you. Just let me get one more announcement in here. As I mentioned earlier, we did every Saturday in August with a workshop, and we are going to be doing one Saturday a month from now until December with a similar workshop to this. The date for next month, October, is October 17th, and Dr. Mike Poe and Dr. Andy Grover will be leading the workshop. We will be with them, and they are going to be doing a workshop that they're entitling Student Engagement Means Student Success. Now, when we're talking about engagement, we're not talking about the marriage engagement, but we're talking about how we are involved and how we get students involved and their involvement and how that will apply and mean something to student success. So mark that on your calendar if you're interested. October 17th, same time, same place, same company. We'll just have some different presenters, but we will be with you. But today, our whole purpose, as I mentioned earlier, is to talk about quality education and quality schools. When Dr. Salam and Dr. Jake and I were talking about this, we asked, you know, what does quality education automatically equal quality schools, or do quality schools automatically equal quality education? And that's a really interesting question. And what we are intending to do by this is, when we provide a quality education, we are developing quality schools. And just so you know, we define school success as student success. When students improve, schools improve, and that's got to be our goal. So today we're going to launch off into this, and we're asking the question, how does quality education happen, and what does it look like? And later on, we're going to be talking about Array Global and how we believe that at Array Global, we can help you achieve these things that we're going to be talking about. So the first thing we're going to say is, let's find the definition of quality. You know, we can bandy around a whole bunch of words about quality. It seems to me that we can hear quality issued by a lot of people. I was looking at an advertisement for a dentist in our area, and he said, "We provide quality service." What does that mean? You know, when customers come to our store, some of them say, "We provide quality service. We provide quality." So we thought it was important for us to define what quality is. So we went back to Webster. Most of you know Webster and his dictionary and so forth. And here's the exact definition of quality. It's a standard of something that's measured against other things of a similar kind, the degree of excellence of something. For instance, if you have, I just had my Honeycrisp apple this morning, I consider that a quality Honeycrisp apple. You see the golden apple here. You don't compare the quality golden crisp apple against our dog food that we give our dog. It's totally different stuff. So what we're meaning here is, what do we measure quality on the degree on schools, and how would you define that? Then we ask the question, how do you define a quality school, and what does it look like? So there we're getting into quality, and we say, well, we better know what a school is. Now, broadly, a school is an institution for learning. We're hearing advertisements now that our home has now turned into a gymnasium, an office, a classroom, a bedroom for our children, because that's where in many cases the students are. And so the school now has to be a broader subject than just a building, but it has to be something that says it's an institution for learning. And at Array Global, we have substituted in most cases the word school, and we've put in the word institution, because we know that an institution can happen in several ways. And so we say quality, the standard of something compared against something else of the same type, and school, which is an institution of learning. You see a traditional looking school here. Many of your schools look just like this. Maybe you don't have the trees, maybe you don't have the orange in the cupboard or in the building, but your school looks something like this. But we need to think beyond the building itself to an institution for learning.
And I think, Dr. Ray, I think this is really important, especially during COVID, because a lot of the learning that's happening is happening through distance-based means, through virtual means, and that's still provided through an institution. And so we need to just be aware that when we're talking about quality education and quality school, we're talking about, even at the current state, that we're still providing a quality education as best we can.
Good. So let's get into these. Okay, so how do you define a quality school? Again, look at the golden apple. You know, we all know the golden apple. Look at the institution that you see in front of you. Now let's find the 11 characteristics that we are defining as, what does it look like, a quality school? Number one is the issue that students, if we go on to the next slide, Jake, students are deeply involved with their work, especially with academic teacher-led instruction. Again, we're looking at it differently now during COVID. But the idea is students must be involved with their work to make it a quality school, because if they're not involved with their work, they're not learning and they're not improving. And the second area is it's teacher-led instruction. It doesn't say teachers do all the instruction. A quality school has teacher-led instruction, which might be projects, which might be assignments, which might be field trips. There might be many things, but the teacher's responsible for putting that all together.
And I think we've really had to get very, very creative during this COVID situation to provide this education. Some teachers have had to get parents a lot more involved at home to get students engaged in their learning. And we just have to get very, very creative to make sure that students are getting deeply involved in this work so they can be successful.
If I may add,
Oh, go ahead.
to this thought about student, if you would go back to the previous slide, please. Dr. Jake. So when we say students are deeply involved in their work, that is easier to measure and observe if the student is with you in the classroom. So that creativity that Dr. Jake talked about in terms of how we actually afford students or give students the opportunities now to be more actively involved in their own learning is something that you can still facilitate through distance learning. And you can do it through inquiry by asking the students, what have they done today? Ask them about how much work they have done. How did they do the work? How did they prioritize how to do the work? How did they engage their parents in helping them, or an older brother or sister to help them with that work? So when we think about students involved, they can be involved from their own home, the environment that they're currently in. As Dr. Ray said, the home has become a school. So that involvement can actually still take place there. So thank you.
And then we go on to the second characteristic. Students know what is expected of them and are generally successful. When I used to teach at the high school level, what I tried to do, and I did this when I was teaching in the university also, if you want an A in this class or the top grade, here are the things you will need to do, show, be, whatever, by the time we're through. If you want a B, you do these things and so forth. And there's a humorous story that it just came to my mind while Dr. Salam was talking. I used to work with, I used to know a friend who worked with a particular business, and they hired a college student to clean up their restrooms because they found that the restrooms were not being very clean. And their particular building had 2 floors. And so what the owner decided to do is, I'm going to take him and show him how to clean the restrooms. So he took him to the restrooms on the first floor, and he went and said, now here's what we do. We do this, and we scrub this, we wipe this, we do this and this. And he went through, and the student or the worker said, yes, I understand. So the next day, the owner went in, and that restroom was spotless, clean as it could be. But he went to the second floor, and the restroom was dirty. It hadn't been touched at all. So he pulled the guy in and he said, wait a minute, didn't we just go over this yesterday telling you exactly? He said, oh, you told me how to clean the restrooms on the first floor. I didn't know we cleaned them the same way on the second floor. Now that's a humorous story, but so many times we think students know what is expected of them, and we have to be very clear. We have to give them all the help that we can give them to say, here's what you need to know or show or do or be or act or whatever. We need to be very clear because every student will receive the information differently, and they don't always make the connections that we make in our heads. So we need to make sure that students know what's expected of them. And frankly, one of the best ways to do that is maybe similar to what I did when I was teaching at the high school and the university level. If you want an A in this class, here are the things you need to know, do, show, be by the time we're through with this unit or this semester or this year.
I think to go along with that, Dr. Ray, even in a lesson, whether it's a regular class outside when COVID is over or during COVID, we need to make sure that students know exactly what our objectives are. And research shows that if students know what the objective is, teachers know what the objectives are, then student learning increases nearly 30% just by something that simple. And we need to make sure that we're implementing that in our day-to-day lessons. Such a powerful, powerful tool. The next thing in a quality school is there's little wasted time, that every instructional minute is utilized from the very beginning of the lesson to the end of the lesson. The beginning of the lesson starts with a bell ringer, where students come in even before the bell rings and they're working and they're engaged. And then there's quality instruction that goes on throughout the entire lesson, and the lesson ends with possibly an exit ticket. And so every single minute, the students are engaged, they're learning, and they're enjoying the class.
So I want to underscore something here, Dr. Jake, that's very obvious, but I think it's really important to mention. As teachers, as educators, we feel the need to fill every minute of class time, which sometimes means we are lecturing, presenting, leading the discussion and the information that the students are receiving from us. But you said something that's really important. This time is also the students' work time. So when we say, I take you back to the first slide, which is the students are actively engaged or involved in their own learning. So this time should really be about teachers providing instruction and students doing, performing student level work at the highest quality, of course, highest level possible, and that they're actively engaged in their learning and not just having it be direct instruction the entire time.
I can't help but throw in here an example I've used in one of the other workshops, but I think it's really pertinent here. I was asked by the administrator, owner of a particular school in another country. I haven't seen anybody from that country on here so far, but he wanted a teacher workshop on student behavior, student discipline. And it was going to be 2 hours after school, 2 days in a row, so a total of 4 hours. Well, I personally believe that we have more of a teacher discipline problem than we do a student discipline problem. And so that we don't criticize all teachers, I'm not saying that, but I think it's because we don't tell students enough about how they're supposed to spend their time. So the first day that the teachers came into the workshop after their day had concluded, their teaching day had concluded, I had written on all over the front of the classroom, I had written, you know, here are the rules for the class, here's what we're going to do this day, and then I had right in the middle, before class begins today, teachers, please write a short paragraph, and then I gave them a topic. So when I came in, I purposely kind of greeted everybody and said, nice to see you and so forth. And so I started by saying, how many of you saw this request on the board? Teachers, before class begins today, write a short paragraph on the following topic. Oh, that means us? And I said, well, yes, this workshop is for teachers and you are teachers. And oh, we didn't know that meant us. So we went through all of that first day and we talked about some ideas on how they could engage students and how they could do their work. And so the second day, I did the same thing. However, on purpose, I was not in the classroom when it began. I was 15 minutes late. I was hiding out in the school owner's office so that they didn't even, well, where's Dr. Ray? Where's Dr. Ray? And I understand because the superintendent or the owner was sitting there and said, oh, there's an assignment. We better do it. So when I came in 15 minutes late, they were all working on the assignment. And I clapped my hands and I said, congratulations. After one day of practice, you understand what the rules of the class are. And I said, if we can do that as teachers, imagine how we can operate with students. And I believe that if we give clear instructions and there's little wasted time. I happen to be a disciple of an old theorist, Madeline Hunter, who wrote Instructional Theory into Practice. And she talks about having a set in class that you don't waste time taking roll. Let me see, Salam, are you here today? Jake, are you here? Khalid, are you here? You don't need to do that. You can do that while the students are doing something else. You don't waste time so that the second students come into class, you're ready to go. And they know, oh, this is how we operate here. We start with doing whatever. So that's an important point to me.
The next is the climate of the school. It's work-oriented, but relaxed and pleasant. And as Dr. Ray and I and Dr. Salam have been into many, many schools in the United States and throughout the world, usually you can walk into a school and know what kind of a school it is within just the first few minutes by looking at it, by interacting with people. And there's just a feeling in schools. And it's something that each one of us should really, really focus on to make sure that our schools are welcoming, that they have a positive atmosphere. And even during this COVID time, we need to make sure that our climate, you still have a climate, even if you're doing distance-based or if you're doing face-to-face, whatever system you're providing for your students, we need to make sure that it's welcoming, the students feel cared for, parents feel listened to, and that we're providing the best education that we can under whatever circumstances we're facing.
Okay, let's move on. The fifth characteristics. All administrators and teachers meet the highest educational standards and engage in ongoing professional development. Dr. Salam is the real expert in this area, and I'd like to have you just talk about this one and how important that is and how they achieve these ongoing professional development requirements.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ray. So quite often in education, when we think about our profession and we think about our practice, we tend to think a lot about instruction. We think about curriculum, we think about instruction, we think about pedagogy, we think about assessment, whether it's interim assessments, on-demand assessments, quizzes, tests, or a summative assessment that we administer at the end of the school year. And that's how we define quality education, by having all of these pieces in place. Research, however, has clearly indicated through multiple studies that the number one ingredient for ensuring quality education and the success of all students is a quality teacher in the classroom. So quality teachers are the main ingredient for student success. Now, the second variable that's often overlooked but is equally important is a quality administrator, and the way that individual leads in the school and the way that individual upholds the highest standards for both students and administrators. And I would include expectations, as we talked earlier, the quality of instruction, the quality of the school, the culture or environment, if you will. So I just can't say enough about the importance of having a quality teacher in every classroom, providing quality instruction to your students, and making sure that your administrators are also of the highest quality, and that professional development and training are ongoing. It's not something that you do once and you become proficient at it. It's really a continuous improvement mindset that basically says, I, as an educator, whether I'm the teacher or the principal or a counselor or performing in some capacity, have to continue to grow, have to continue to get better and to improve, because that actually improves my practice and that improves the opportunities for my students to receive a quality education and to be successful. So that's really what's behind this principle of a quality school and quality education, is that the people that do the work are essential, and we have to invest in their continuing development, growth, and capacity building. So I'll stop there.
And I want to add a little bit to that, because the key term in here, I think, is the ongoing part of professional development. And I think we've seen that with this COVID situation, where a lot of teachers were not prepared for providing this online professional development. They were not prepared to do it, to working with technology, working in front of a computer. But we need to now learn from our mistakes and make sure that our teachers are prepared, that they know how to teach online. This might not be the only time that they see that in their profession, but we need to make sure that we are providing some quality professional development right now, and to make sure that every teacher is able to provide a quality education during this pandemic.
Yeah, and we have to, when the word ongoing is a great word in there. Who would have thought 2 years ago that we'd have to have all of our teachers be experts in online education? Who would have thought it? Who would have thought it a year ago? And yet it is what's in front of us right now. So professional development means that in many cases, teachers are going to have to learn something more about the internet, have to learn something more about how they're going to respond to students in a timely manner through emails and so forth. This is all part of ongoing professional development. So things change. We have to be in the best way we can. We have to understand professional development. The next slide is just one that we threw in here because I think it's kind of fun. I found this once, I've used it before, and we understand because we've all been there. Oh, don't get away from it. Okay, you know, teachers today must be comedians. They need to be circus performers. They need to be parents. They need to be educators. All of these things, and there probably are more, but just think about the role that we have as teachers. I have to say that a lot of times people think that teaching means I know something, I'm going to tell you that's something that I know, and I'm going to give you a quiz to see if you listen to me. We're not going to get very far with our students if that's our attitude. So we threw this in, understanding we as educators understand we have many, many roles, and you know as well as we know, if you have 25 students who come to your classroom every day, you're going to have 25 different needs that you will need to try to address in one way or the other, because we don't come as one unit all the same. So we have to understand we have different roles to have as our responsibility. Okay, the curriculum. Quality schools have good curriculum. Go for it, Dr. Drake.
Yeah, I just want to just add a little bit to this, is that we have to make sure that we have the main tools in place to provide a quality education. And curriculum is probably second most important to the facilities. I understand you have to have facilities in order to have education. Might not be the best example during this time, but curriculum is such an important part of a quality school. And that it also has to be flexible enough to challenge students who might struggle with a certain subject area, but then also really challenge those students that need a little bit extra, that are part of that gifted and talented end. So we need to make sure that that curriculum is a continuum, that it's also very well outlined from grade level to grade level, and that we're progressing students all the way up to graduation to help them be prepared for whatever they're going to do after they graduate high school, whether it's they're going to go to college or university, or they want to learn a skill, join the workforce. We just need to be so prepared and so flexible with our curriculum. And it seems like a big challenge, but we've been in so many quality schools that are able to provide that flexibility for students at all levels.
Yeah. Dr. Jake, if I may add just a small comment here, and I would put it in the form of a question. Who is the curriculum for? So think about that. As a teacher, even as a school leader or administrator, who is the curriculum for? The curriculum is for me to deliver, but it's actually for my students. And there's a term that Marzano talks a lot about and has written extensively about. It's called the guaranteed and viable curriculum. And a guaranteed and viable curriculum means it is accessible and guaranteed and viable for every learner. So when Dr. Jakes talked about the curriculum being flexible to accommodate the needs of individual students, that curriculum is really for that student. And we have to meet students where they are and move them forward. So I just will leave you with that thought. Who is the curriculum for? Because as a teacher, I think it's for me. But in actuality, it's for the students that I'm responsible for. Thank you.
Good. I can't help but respond to my friend Khalid, whose photo I see here. He and I have had discussions on this very issue, and we've discussed about making the curriculum for the slower student. And we've had some discussions on this. I said, no, we don't need to modify it for slower students. We need to modify it for all students. And how we define that is the term that we use regularly. You've heard it from us before, called scope and sequence. The scope, what do you expect all students to know by the end of leaving the school, grade 12 usually? What do you expect all students to know at the end of grade 12? If you know that at the end of grade 12, what do you need to know at the end of grade 11 to get ready for 12, 10 for 11, 9 for 10, and you go all the way back. The reason why this is modified to challenge all learners is because if the fourth grade teacher has a group of 25 students, they're going to be at different levels. Some will not have accomplished or learned the things they should have learned in the third grade. If the teacher knows what should have happened in the third grade, the teacher can assist that student to catch up. And the other end of it, this is where college we get into all learners. At the other end of it is when they go beyond the fourth grade and the teacher finds out, students more advanced than all the other fourth grade students. The teacher knows what's coming next. And so that's why we modify it to challenge all learners. And I hesitate to say this, but almost every student requires an individual lesson plan. And there are ways we can accommodate that. But we need to challenge all learners. Okay.
And just another thing to add on to there, not only does it need to challenge all learners, but we've seen so many great things happen during this COVID-19 situation that schools have taken their curriculum and molded it into a program that's going to provide the best education for their students during this pandemic. And I would encourage you to look back at some of our other workshops that we've provided. We've talked specifically about curriculum during the COVID crisis. And so, because many of you are working through that, we're all working through that right now, and how important that is to make sure that you can mold your curriculum for each individual learner, for each individual situation that your students may be in or your school is in.
Yeah, and the point that Dr. Bob and Dr. Lori, who did the curriculum workshop in August, made is the curriculum probably will not or should not change. The delivery of the curriculum is what needs to change. So we do that. Okay, student success. How do we define student success? If students can show their learning, that's student success. And the student who is probably at the lower end of the learning spectrum, or maybe only would perform at the 10th percentile on any standardized test, and within a year he grows to the 20th percentile, which probably isn't great, is just as significant as the person who maybe performs the 70th percentile on that same standardized test and grows to the 80th. 10-point spread either way. But look what this student has done at the lower level. That's success for that student. And we have to define student success individually. How did that student improve? And when we start comparing individual students with each other, the lower half of the class, the higher half of the class, the first quartile, the second quartile, that's information for us to know that all students need to be treated, that they can be successful in their own way.
And Dr. Ray, don't you think an important part of this is the authentic learning? That part just really stands out to me as an educator, that we have to provide authentic learning in our curriculum. And that means that students aren't just spouting back numbers or they can go through the motions, but they can actually apply exactly what they've learned, and they can remember it for a later date as they keep progressing in that subject area. I think that's so important, because a big thing that we're really focusing on is educating students to be quality citizens. And so if they can't apply what they're learning in their class, we're not doing our job. We need to teach them to apply proper learning techniques, proper skills that they can apply outside of the class and after graduation in anything that they do.
And I think that's why having that clarity that we talked about earlier in terms of the expectations becomes absolutely essential, and especially during this pandemic that we're all experiencing. The more clarity and the more specificity that we can provide in terms of the expectations and how that defines success is really important for us to measure success as educators. But I think the nuance here is that we have to allow students to experience success individually and to demonstrate their learning at their appropriate pace without compromising the standard and the expectation. But I think the important point here is that students demonstrate and experience success in individual ways, and we have to be able to recognize that and honor it.
Right, and the word authentic is in there. We haven't talked much about it, but authentic learning, to me, the word transfer comes into my mind. Transfer of this piece of knowledge to other areas. And I refer again humorously to the worker who was supposed to clean the restrooms, and authentic learning was not really there for him, because oh, that's how we clean all restrooms. He thought that's only how we clean the restrooms on the first floor. And so we have to understand we have to understand that authentic learning involves transfer into new situations also. And I could go on and on about authentic learning, because unfortunately we tend to put things in a straight box and say, well, it means this, 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 forget all the rest of it. It's got to be transferred to other learning.
The next thing is that we need to provide a well-rounded education for students. And we kind of talked about this already, where students need to have skills, not just in mathematics, reading and writing, but they need to have good character, and they have to have knowledge and skills that they can apply to be quality citizens, to help strengthen their communities, their countries, and the world. Our biggest focus as educators is really building that character of each student, because without character, there is no quality education without quality character in an individual. So that's kind of the core foundation. And I think that's one of the reasons many of us go into education, so we can build those relationships with students in helping them build that character. And there's so much in the school that helps build that character, not just learning how to study really hard or follow the teacher, also just to follow the rules, and interactions with other people help us really help build each one of our students' characters.
Yeah. Dr. Jake, if I may add a couple of thoughts relative to well-rounded education, because that is a term that we use quite often, but we really don't fulfill it to the extent that it deserves in our systems. The COVID has really complicated that tremendously. So in our schools in the state of Oregon, when schools shut down as a result of COVID-19 in the spring, instruction was really limited to a few subject areas, primarily math, science, and reading. And that is not a comprehensive, well-rounded education. A comprehensive, well-rounded education includes all of the subjects that you would typically deliver during an instructional day, an instructional year. And you pay close attention to the social, emotional development and needs of all students, and character education is definitely one of those. However, I also want to emphasize that when we are thinking of well-rounded education, we should be thinking about the academic subject areas that we want to provide to students, but many of you provide training relative to career and technical education, vocational education, skill training, career development, counseling, you name it. So be really mindful of delivering that well-rounded education, even during the circumstances that we're operating under, because it is absolutely imperative if your goal is to meet the needs of all students. And that's how we actually reach some students and keep them connected and engaged and really interested in education, despite the challenges that they may be facing at this time. So well-rounded education is one of the reasons I got into education, because I wanted to make sure that my students were fully developed in every aspect of their social, emotional, academic, intellectual, and career potential. So, thank you.
Which leads beautifully into the next point of indication of a quality school, preparing students for what comes next. Unfortunately, many schools we visit, not only internationally, but here in the United States, the whole school is aimed at these students are all going to go to college, they're going to go to the university, they're going to get a university degree, they're going to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, whatever. And we know statistically that's not so. It doesn't really happen that way. But by doing this, we have an indication that that's the only thing that will be good for you is if you go to the university. I have two grandsons. One is a junior at University of Colorado. He's doing a major in film studies. That's what he wants to do. The other was just graduated from high school a year ago. He wants to go into the Navy. Right now, college isn't what he needs or wants, according to what he's thinking. So we need to support the heck out of him to help him realize that what he wants to do is honorable. What he wants to do is valuable. His career can be as good as he wants it to be, whether it's in the Navy or with a college degree. And there are some wonderful, wonderful professional vocational programs that students enter after high school, which makes them very successful Let's talk about Bill Gates and whether he was graduated from college or not. You know, there's an interesting story there, but we need to help students prepare for what's next. You know, what's next? Let make sure they have basically a good foundation, those subjects which we're teaching. Let's make sure they have a good image of themselves, that they know that they can make good decisions. Let's make sure that whatever it is they say they want to do, that we provide information for them on that career or college or military or whatever. All of these things will make a student feel worthwhile. But if we treat everyone in school as if he or she is going to the university next year, we're probably going to have some silent students, but they're not going to be with us.
And I think too, Dr. Ray, just to add to that, I think when we talk about what comes next, we don't need to just be looking from our kindergartners all the way up to graduation. For kindergarten, we need to look at what's next is first grade too, and what's after first grade, second grade. And so we have that sequence of events in helping them prepare to finish elementary school, and then middle school, high school, and then post high school.
Okay. Here's where Dr. Jake is my mentor. He helps me understand e-learning and all these things. If I have an issue with something on my computer, I usually call him and say, hey, what can I do? Yesterday, I couldn't get a Word document to save in the proper place. I had to call him and say, hey, so please, Dr. Jake, tell us about the importance of e-learning in today's world.
And you know, Dr. Ray and I gave this a similar workshop. We talked about e-learning about a year ago. And I'll bet you if we could go back to that time, to those educators, and they knew what was going to happen in March with COVID-19, they would be focusing a lot more on learning technology and how to incorporate technology into a classroom. I think the biggest thing with this, and we've all learned about this in the past 5-6 months, is that technology is such an important tool in education. We're having to implement and use so many different types of technology right now. But I think the biggest thing is that the 21st century requires in almost every career that you go into the use of technology regularly. I don't know of very many careers that do not require a lot of use of technology. People are attached to their phones, to their computers. There's a lot more Zoom meetings nowadays. But just in general, I went to a log mill the other day where they process wood, and it was so computerized, I was just baffled by it. It looked like a major computer program, like a computer game. But here are these people, they didn't go to college, but they are using this technology to produce wood that can be used to make houses and other things. But everything that it seems like we're doing in our society now is connected with technology for good and for bad. And I think the part that we should focus on in schools is teaching how students to use it as a strong tool and not just a form of entertainment.
Okay. Oh. Everybody needs to be committed to make the school high quality. Teachers, parents, community, administrators, students, everybody has to be committed to make the school high quality. We need to inspire parents to be education parents. We need to inspire teachers to be teachers of the future generation. We need to inspire administrators to have the expectation that that administrator is fully doing everything he or she can to help teachers feel more comfortable in that position. So we need to commit, everybody needs to commit it to make the school high quality. We don't really have anybody who says, hey, I want a bad education for my son or daughter. So when we know that they want high quality, let's take their words and listen to them and see what we can do to make the school high quality.
If I may add to that, Dr. Ray, I want to introduce this term that may not be new to you, but we often don't think of it in the meaning that I will discuss with you here in a second, and that is the learning community. So when I would learning community. So when I work with schools, when I go into real large comprehensive high schools, and we start to look at their school improvement effort and school transformation plans, I always say, well, let's have some conversations with your learning community. And I purposefully use that term to see how they think about it and how they typically approach it. So the response that I often get, great, I will bring my teachers together and we can talk about this. But learning community is every members of this slide right here. It's your administrators, it's your staff. And when I think of staff, I think of licensed staff and non-licensed staff. It's your parents, it's your students, and the broader community that your school happens to be in. So think about learning community and think about how parents and students can lend their voices to your strategic plan, to your vision. Think about when you enlist parents and they become partners in this work relative to their student success, how successful you will be, because now they're guaranteeing their student success through their interaction with you. So I think it's really important to think broadly about stakeholders and to start to thinking of your school as the hub of that learning community that brings all of those partners together to focus on students and their success.
Yeah, and we have to be ready to take criticism, or what we see as criticism.
Yeah.
You know, we can learn a lot through the mistakes we make. We can learn a lot through somebody who comes in as an objectionable and not nice and has a bunch of ugly things to say. We need to learn to take criticism because we all want the same thing, a quality school to make quality students.
And I think part of that, Dr. Ray, as we talked earlier, part of that is listening. So you may disagree on what somebody else is saying, but this is the skill that we're also trying to teach our students, is to listen, to understand, to appreciate, and be able to engage in a conversation and not necessarily reject everything outright. That's part of developing their thinking and critical and analytical skills as well. So thank you.
And I always try, when somebody has a critique or criticism, I always try to make sure I hear everything they have to say. And then I think about my response. And usually what I say, I'm thanking you for your input. I appreciate the fact that you told me that. Then we can do whatever. But anyway, we need to make them feel valuable also. And finally, it's not a one-time fix. A quality school is not a one-time fix. As I said earlier, who would have known that 2 years ago we'd have to be emphasizing distance learning as much as we are today. So it's not a one-time fix. We need to be ready for the changing world, the changing ideas, the changing circumstances in our world, and that we're committed to whatever those circumstances are. To remember, as educators, we have a responsibility to be forward-thinking, figure out situations. Yes, it's frustrating. Back to our other slide about all the roles of a teacher. Yes, being a teacher is very frustrating sometimes. But I think the real benefit comes when we see the bright eye in that student, when we see the student 2 years from now who's out of our classrooms and doing extremely well. That's where we see the real value. It's ongoing, it's continuous, but our world changes, we change, students change, parents change, believe it or not. I am one, so I know that. So now we're going to go into a bit about accreditation, and we'll be talking here. I like this one because we call this the school pyramid. At the top, all the way down to the bottom, where do we place the parents, the students, the accreditation and governments, the administrators, and the teachers? Who is the highest of importance? Now, you've heard us enough now. Shouldn't be surprised when we show you the next slide, because then we put these in the order that we need to remember. Students are at the top. Parents are right below them. Teachers, administrators, accreditation and governments, and everybody works up, remembering the end goal is the student and everybody. And so what we're admitting, the three of us are admitting, we are at the bottom of the pyramid as far as importance. everybody moves up. Everybody moves up to make sure that the students are the most important thing. And the things that we do need to involve the students. And we need to, under that, we need to make sure the parents are involved. Good. So now we're talking about accreditation in general, the recognition that an institution maintains standards requisite for the next steps, including college or career readiness. When Dr. Salam and I worked at the Department of Education, we kind of had two hats. One is we represented the accrediting agency, and the other is we represented the government. So when we go into a school, there are certain governmental things that they had to be doing. It's a matter of their funding, it's a matter of their license and all that kind of stuff. That's different from accreditation. Accreditation is how well are you doing and how can you do better? Yes, you're meeting the requirements as far as the government, but now how do we take those requirements and make that meaningful in the area of accreditation? So we're going to talk a little bit about accreditation here. An institution maintains high standards. So we'll go into the goal. The accreditation is to ensure that education provided by institution meets internationally recognized levels of quality.
And Dr. Ray and I have been in, and Dr. Salam have been into so many different schools. And as we develop our standards and our indicators, we know what quality schools are made of. And as we have created these indicators, they haven't just been thrown out. They've been made over many, many years and many years of refining them and developing them and making sure that as we go into schools and we evaluate schools, we know exactly what we need to be looking at schools to make sure that they're providing a quality education.
Yes, and you're talking about our experience. If you look at our visas, our resumes, among the three of us, we probably represent over 100 years of experience working in the education profession. And I have the most of them. I fully agree to that. But anyway, hopefully we're all learning, we're all growing. I've never been into a school where I don't learn something new. So the 5 array global standards, and we are just going to briefly say these. And here are the things that we look at when we come into a school to do an accreditation visit. First is the curricular program. That's paramount. You have to have a program, and it has to be based on something other than a textbook, something that other than a teacher saying, well, I think students should know this. That needs to be well researched, well documented why you chose the curriculum. Secondly, the instructional program. There are many, many ways to operate the instructional program. Unfortunately, we go into some schools where the instructional program means the teacher stands in front of the class and talks for 30, 45 minutes, and the students are sitting there, most of them asleep or bored or whatever. But the teacher, I'm telling you everything you need to know, so listen. So the instructional program and how it's delivered is important. The structure and support systems, the finances and facilities, and the culture of continuous improvement. So those are the 5 basic standards of Array Global accreditation. Jake, your mic. Jake, your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's indicators under each one of these standards that outline specifically what schools must meet to meet the specific standard in and of itself. So the first process of getting accredited is the provisional accreditation. And this is the very beginning where we make sure that you have the main components of a school, of a quality school. You have your curriculum in place, you have your staff members, you have your policies and procedures and your handbooks, that your facilities are in place. And we also, when we do this meeting or this visit with you, we come in and we train you and talk to you about what the full accreditation is going to look like. So the provisional accreditation lasts for 1 year. Again, it will prepare you for the full accreditation visit.
I just saw a note from Dr. Huda. She said, we need to educate people that the textbook is not the curriculum. She's right. It's a resource to teach the curriculum. And let's remember that. And then finally is the full accreditation. We don't expect on the provisional accreditation for everything to be perfect. That's why we come in. We want to see where you are, what you're doing, and help lead you to what you need to do to make the full accreditation, which usually happens a year after the provisional accreditation. But during that provisional accreditation, we work with you to help you develop whatever they are. And Dr. Jake already talked about those areas that we look at specifically. Sometimes people seem to think that when we come in for a provisional, everything has to be perfect. I have much more help for somebody who says, I don't understand this. Could you help me figure it out? Could you help me see what I need to do? I can really deal with that. But it's very hard to go into a school and they just want to believe that everything is perfect and we don't need anything. And I'm saying, oh, you don't need accreditation then, because perfection is perfection. So that's why we do the provisional and then the full accreditation.
And I think too, Dr. Ray, the full accreditation and the provisional accreditation is almost, especially the full accreditation, is like a culmination of a lot of hard work. It's a time of celebration because the school has done so much in doing its self-assessment and getting ready for things, evaluating their school, developing a school improvement process. And we really come in to just affirm that the school did the self-assessment in the correct fashion. And so often schools, get a big pat on their back. There's some things obviously that you have to work on. There's never been a school that I've been in, that any of us have been in, that the school is perfect. But it's really, we go in as people who want to build a relationship and maintain that relationship and help you in your school improvement process.
And I think I'd like to add, that's why we were really intentional in the way we labeled those standards for accreditation, the 5 standards. And we were really intentional in conveying the essence of what each standards actually means and implies. So the 5th standard is about a culture for continuous improvement, which is really a commitment, not just on your part, but the entire school, that this accreditation process is for your own benefit. It's for you to continue to improve and to enhance your practice to achieve excellence. I just think it's really important to also note that the standards are articulated in a way that is very practical, pragmatic, and useful. These are not abstract standards. And that, I'll be quite frank with you, that is our experience. We have experience from a state level, a local level, a school level, a regional level, and with the 3 of us now, multiple states, if you will, and working in different sectors, both in K-12 and higher education. So the standards are articulated with indicators that are very pragmatic, very relevant to what you do every day in your schools and classrooms, and can actually help you measure and validate the work that you're doing and enhance it. And as you do that, the whole purpose is getting to this notion of quality schools and quality education, which increases the success of your students.
Okay, so I think we've gone through the accreditation process. Dr. Jake, if you would you just talk about some of the services that we offer at Array Global?
Yeah, we talked about accreditation. Another service that we provide is certification. So if your school wants to be a STEM school, a science, technology, engineering, mathematics school, we can certify your school. We can actually help your school become a STEM school. We also do STEAM certifications: science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And again, we can help you in that process. If you have some kind of a program, specialized program that you want certified, we can certify that for you. Just like I said about STEM and STEAM, if you want to set that up in your school and you want some help with that, we can help you do that through our consulting services. We also have consulting services to help you with your curriculum, with your policies and procedures, with your staff handbook, with any part of the school that needs, from your facilities all the way up through your day-to-day activities of evaluating teachers and support staff. We also have a robust program of professional development. We're really excited. It can be done in a hybrid fashion. It can be done online, face-to-face. or face-to-face and online if you want to. And we have a great organization that provides that. We also have a Professional Educators Association where we want to get all the teachers together in one country to regularly talk and discuss about the problems or issues that they may be having, or get a group of administrators together regularly every month and talk about how they're dealing with the COVID situation, or how they're dealing with recruiting new students, or anything that they feel like would help strengthen their schools and provide a quality education. We also offer awards and recognition. You've probably seen on our Facebook page that we have Institution of the Month. We have a Student of the Month recognition, because there's so many quality things that are going on in these schools, in our schools, that we want to recognize you and pat you on the back and show that off to other schools, so they can also learn from that and they can implement some of those quality things that are in their school. We also have a distance-based education. It's called Fayday Virtual. It's a great program that can be implemented strictly at home, like during this COVID situation, or it could be implemented at the school where it can be a teacher-supported program. We also have a great program, external assessment program. It's through Tree Test, and it's specific for international schools. So teachers and administrators can use data every single day to drive their instructional practices, to drive their school improvement practices. And then the last thing that we have that we're really excited about, we're kicking this off October 10th. We've posted it on our Facebook page, it's on our website, but we have academic Olympiads. And this is where students and schools can compete with other students and schools from around the world. It's very minimal in price, and we really want to just get a lot of people involved and get really excited about learning, because we often get really excited about playing football, or I like playing basketball, but we need to get kids excited about learning, and they can compete together and build relationships together through these academic Olympiads. Just a great, great opportunity. And if you want to learn more about that, again, go to our website for any of these services. If you do have any specific questions, you can shoot us an email and we can help you through that. If you want any consulting services to help you out as you're setting up programs for COVID, or if you need help setting up a teacher evaluation program, or you want someone to review your policies and procedures or your curriculum, please let us know through our consultants. We have about 15 different consultants from around the world that would love to work with you and your school and helping your school improve and providing a quality education.
So we're dedicated to being school friendly. We want you to be pleased when we come and not pleased when we leave. You know, we want to be very friendly in how we operate with you. We've had over 2,000 people who were registered for our August workshops. We had about over 700, I believe, registered for today's workshop. We'd be honored if in your school you chose to credit with Array Global. For those of you schools that are not already accredited, we have the process. For those of you that are already accredited by another agency and you want to add us or replace that agency with us, we have a very easy way for you to do that, and we'd be very pleased. We know that right now your biggest effort is spent in trying to put things together to open school. We know that, but we do believe that we can offer more help. The more schools that we have that accredit with us, we've received wonderful responses already, and we have a very, very big team. As Dr. Jake mentioned, we have about 15 educational consultants. Dr. Salam is one of those, and we have about 15 who offer help in various ways, and we will match you up with the people, and we'll work carefully with you. So that's pretty much what we wanted to do today. I thank you all for coming. I'd like to leave you with this thought. I think that most of you here are teachers. And if you're an administrator, you're a teacher too. You might not have students in the classroom on a daily basis, but we're all teachers if we believe that we have to do something to inspire. So let me leave you with this. Teachers paint their minds, guide their thoughts, share their achievements, and advise their faults. They inspire and love of knowledge and truth. As you light the path which leads the youth, for our future brightens as we light the path. With each lesson you teach, each smile you lengthen, each goal you help reach, for the dawn of each poet, each philosopher, and each king begins with teachers and the wisdom they bring. You don't know what the future is for those kids you have in your class. So bless you. Congratulations for your decision to be an educator. You have the most noble profession in the world. So it's been great to be with you today. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. Let us know how we can help. We'd be thrilled, as I said, if you decided to accredit with Array Global, and we'll do all we can to help you. Thanks, Dr. Jake, Dr. Salam, and for all of you who have been with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.